Had from a Hudson, I'll be able to think I hope to be out here. And a purpose, it will be. Last week or a few days ago, we put together children and talked briefly about children's rights and adults as a parent's responsibilities and duties and things like that. Na ye video na mini abema baako ubisa said I should define a child. Many of them are quite knowledgeable. He's actually a professor, and then you're in professionals. I think that he felt as if I should elaborate on it to put everything I said into context. So I decided to devote a particular section to that. I hope that you will bear with us to go through. In this particular episode, what I intend to do is to briefly pick out a couple of documents and a sample country, a few countries, a selection of a few countries I feel are relevant, including Ghana, and then try and talk about how they define children. And then at the end of it, I'm just going to offer a few commentary to put everything into a context for us to sort of learn about this. So without much ado, and in the interest of time, I'll just jump right ahead and go on just to talk about how a child is defined in these particular documents and jump ahead. I'm hoping that will be out here. Thank you very much. Keep staying with us and let's go through this together. First of all, the UN Convention, last week I talked a lot about it, the UN Convention on the Right of the Child, which I had mentioned. It is one of the most important documents around the world. And for members of the United Nations, it is a document, a guide, sort of stipulates or set out the principles, how I am fine, what I'm fast. And it's actually the most ratified document around the world. So out of the 194 United Nations member states, at least 192 have ratified this particular document. In other words, if we say document, we say it was in quite welfare and protection. Around the world, we have many documents. We have some of these documents for women's rights. We have some for people with disability. We have some for migrants. We have some for general human rights, civil rights, political rights, economic rights. Now we have for children's rights. As I said, it is the most popular, the most ratified, the most widely accepted documents around the world. That means, say, children's issues are very important to nations of the world. UN documents will define a child, as I had said in my other video. And I said, the article, this document, by the way, was adopted in 1989. The Convention on the Right of the Child, 1989 of the United Nations. Article 1, it defines a child. So for the purposes of this convention, a child means every human being below age 18 years old, unless the law applicable to the child majority is attained earlier. So in other words, they kind of say, as far as the UN document is concerned, a child is anybody under the age of 18, unless a certain nation defines a child otherwise, which, as we shall learn, some countries put the age at different ages as children, or they define children using different age types. The African Charter on the Right of the Child, 1990, it defined on Article 2, it defined a child, said a child is every human being below age 18 years old. The Ghanaian Children's Act of 1998, it defined a child under Section 1, said the child is a person under the age of 18. South Africa, which is one of the most important African countries, it defined a child in their Children's Act of 2005. Article 1, it said a child is any person under age 18 years old. Our Constitution of 1997, Article 28, Paragraph 3 say, in this section, a child means a person under the age of 18. So that means South Africa defining a child as any person under age 18. In Swaziland, and I chose Swaziland for a reason, because Swaziland has different definitions based on context of the purposes. So they don't have an actual one definition, but here's what they say. The initial state party reports that, they reported to the UN Committee of Convention for more Child Care Service Order of 1977, they consider a child as anyone below age 16. So that means in Swaziland, if you are 17 years old, you're considered an adult. Yes, yeah. Under the Employment Act of 1980 in Swaziland, we define a child as anybody under 15 years old. So that means in Swaziland, as far as employment is concerned, whether 15 years old or above, for employment purposes, you are not a child. Yes, yeah. For more Reformatories Act of 1920, so reformatory, more around juvenile detention purposes. So almost they define a child as defines a juvenile as an adult between 16 and 21 years old for the purposes of detention. So that means in Swaziland, so when it's 16, it will be as a juvenile adult, young adult, so they can put you in there, and so whereby what the under 16 into me and for one type of prison. For adoption purposes in Swaziland, Adoption of Children's Act in 1952, they defined a child as somebody below 19 years old. So for adoption purposes, so the same country, for employment purposes, you were 15 now, we are adults. For prison purposes, what is 16 now, we are adults. And for other purposes, 16 above, every adult. But for adoption purposes, you have to be 19 as an adult. So you can be adopted under age 19. And for immigration purposes, a child is below 18 years old in Swaziland. So Swaziland, they have about at least 4 different definitions for a child, depending upon whether you go to prison, whether for employment purposes, or whether for immigration or adoption. In Malawi, they also have a child defined as anyone below 16 years old. On the Constitution of 1994, Article 23, it said children shall be persons under 16 years old. And for child care purposes, or Child Care Protection and Justice Act of 2010, Section 2 said a child means anyone below 16 years old. So in Swaziland, for all purposes, it sounds to me, say so for general purposes, a child is anybody under 16 years old. Or Malawi, for Malawi. In Libya, a child is anybody under the age of 16 years old. Or Children's Protection Act of 1997, or Article 1, I say a child is anyone below 16. In La Côte d'Ivoire, who is our neighbor, which I chose it for proximity to Ghana, they don't have a definitive definition of a child, but they have a Minority Act of 1970, or Article 1 say a child is an individual of either sex, male or female, who has not yet reached 20 years old. So that means in Côte d'Ivoire, if you're 19 years old, you're a child. Anybody below 20. Burkina Faso also doesn't have a definitive definition, but more Act of Definition and Prosecution on Trafficking 2003 defines a child, or Article 1 defines a child as every human being below age 18. Togo, it defines a child. Article 2 of the Children's Code of 2007, it says a child is every human being below 18 years old. So as we can see, many countries define it under 18, some under 16, some under 19. Somalia, no definitive definition. They have different definitions for different purposes, but in general, Somalia, or Juvenile Justice Law 2007, defining a child. In Article 1 says, unless the context indicates otherwise, a child is every human being under age 15 years old. So Somalia, what the 15 or above, you are technically an adult unless another law specifies as such. Omo 2012 Constitution, Article 28, Paragraph 8, it said a child is defined as any person under 18 years old. So there's a contradiction here. So 2007, so in this particular case, I think the Constitution would be supreme. And Article 19 of Constitution of Puntland 2001 also defining a child as anybody under age 15. So in Somalia, that means depending upon which document you're looking at, some under 18, some under 15. In Canada, we have different definitions across provinces. And in Canada, for those who may not be familiar with Canada, Canada has 10 provinces and territories. And 10 provinces and territories, if you compare with the United States, it would be equivalent to the states, the individual states. Ghana, we may compare with individual regions. So in Canada, we have 10 provinces. Now, you have provinces now are autonomous, and they have the different government systems. So even though we have a federal government, provinces now have more governments, and more leaders, and more premiers. But anyway, provinces, it defines a child for the definition who is a minor. In that particular case, it varies by province. In some provinces, such as New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, Yukon, one will define a child as anybody below 19 years old. The rest of Canada define a child as anybody below 18 years old, except Newfoundland. Newfoundland defines a child as anybody under 16 years old. In Canada, another definition of children is around child protection purposes. So be a home mystery too, but I was say children's aid they involved, and I say assess it to apprehend, and I say institute some protection measures. I know in British Columbia it is still under 19 years old. So in British Columbia, it's over 18 years old. Now maltreating a crime. Children's aid, as a children protection services can intervene. In provinces such as Alberta, Manitoba, Quebec, and Prince Edward Island, a child for the purposes of protection is anybody under 18 years old, and the rest of Canada is below 16 years old. So that means over at 17 years old in Ontario, for example, won't you meet and find out and my children said without any participation or any choice of who they want to live with. About child custody cases, crying out sometimes 12 years old, they can participate and choose which parents they want to live with, maybe either directly or through their representation. So there are a few guiding principles beyond the on according to UNICEF concerning child welfare. The Convention on the Right of the Child is the most widely and rapidly ratified core human treaty in history. So this particular document, as I said earlier, guides around the world many nations as to how they should modify their laws to treat children, protection, and for other purposes. And as I already said, the definition in this convention is anyone below 18 years old, and or unless otherwise specified. And the convention really would like people to make sure that the children's protection is really prioritized in this manner. The Committee on the Rights of the Child, this is a treaty body. You and normally more documents, more committees, or more treaty bodies, or more social an institution, be almost social. A minor be a din and so implement this and run you and association right? So they're responsible for monitoring and the implementation of the Convention on the Right of the Child, that is the Committee on the Right of the Child. No, they've encouraged all nations that the age of majority be set below 18 years old to ensure the level of protection for children is enhanced. According to UNICEF, in the earlier stages of our life, especially from the time I'm baby to age 3, babies need nutrition. They need protection, they need stimulation to help them with healthy brain development. According to UNICEF, also recent advances in neuroscience, babies' brains develop at the fastest rate during this time, from pregnancy to age 3. I was in the Shannons. At this stage, they think that is when the brain forms all kinds of connections at such an outstanding rate. And according to Harvard University Center on Developing Child, it is a Harvard University more center of brain development. So now, almost at this stage, from pregnancy, from the time to age 3, brain development develop at a pace of 1 million every single second. This pace can never be repeated. In this particular case, during these crucial times, so one and I saw my men when you know one sharp money stimulation, healthy new here to develop. That means you miss out on that stage, it can affect our friend for the rest of their life. And the Harvard Center for Brain Development for Children, as I can say, brain development process now, in what they call neural connections. So near my brain, brain developing very well. They feel that it is shaped by gene as well as environment. The life experiences, in addition to gene and shaping, it is very important that them a good nutrition, protection, any stimulation, any talk. To say they are quite the first who come into Canada. I say so when they will talk to you to talk to your child, even from the tummy. Wonderful for a baby crying, you talk to them in a responsive attention. So by the obey attentive, the young will be someone who money attention required at that early stage. All of that helps with the brain development. They feel so nature versus nature, and establishing the foundation for a child's future. And to say, if you miss out on some of these, and I say, Oma and your for read the Oma into me, Bofrano, in developing very, very well. And the and so. Almost UNICEF feels that despite all of this, many children are missing out on good nutrition and playtime and the love required for their brains to develop. One of these problems is poverty. They feel is a major problem. It's not in way. And they feel that 250 million children under the age of 5 in middle to low income countries are at risk of not reaching brain development to full potential because of extreme poverty and stunting, poor nutrition that they become. Also, a lack of nutrition in these early stages leads to stunting. It's working in some developing countries, poor countries, and as they don't grow, they become stunted. Okay, the brain becomes stunted. Or physical stature. Or by North America, I won't say the public precision, where slim proud on the body. Just say, one shot for an sheet at Yatian impedes in the child's brain development, which they think poor nutrition early stage of life around the world affects 1 in 4 younger children under 5 years old. What do I say? Also said the risk associated with poverty, such as undernutrition, poor nutrition, poor sanitation, and so can lead to developmental delays and a lack of progress in school. Another issue I'm identifying is violent discipline. But here UNICEF feels that, and many other resource sources in fact says that violent discipline and as a corporal punishment in many countries, for instance, nearly 70% of children between 2 and 5, ages 2 and 5, are yelled at and screamed at in a month period. And 300 million children younger than 5 years are exposed to societal violence, according to UNICEF. For a child in low to middle income country, they feel that poor early development means that these children are less likely to earn good income. So they are starting poor because of some of these underdevelopment. You bring in an argument and develop, you want to mean innovative, want to mean creative. It is something in brain. So they're starting out poor for children in those environments. For a country, they feel that every child, for instance, poor early child, for every country, they feel, according to UNICEF, in every country, poor early child development could mean economic loss. And in fact, they feel that the loss in certain countries, the country spends twice the amount because of child, you're losing economic losses in one. They spend twice in healthcare to fix this problem because of a poor development in children. But yes, so the loss is about twice the loss of because of poor child development, or what the country loses in money, economic terms, twice what the country spends on health. What yes, in Canada, there is a doctrine they call mature minor doctrine in Canada and the US. Now, mature minor doctrine, rule of law, USA, Canada, accepted for young adults, and the doctrine feels that certain people, even though only 18 years old, they may possess the maturity to choose or reject a particular health care treatment, sometimes without the knowledge or consent or agreement from parents. And in that particular case, now they feel those children should be allowed to do so. And it is now generally considered a form of patient right. But yes, that the mature minor rule was largely seen as protecting the healthcare providers from criminal liabilities and things like that. In general, the kind of said there are certain cases where the pandemic will need 18 years old or whatever the age of majority now by a certain. Nemo has the capacity, mental capacity to participate in decisions that affect them. In this case, now, according to these doctrines, now Canada and the US, I know say it plays out a lot in healthcare, any mental health treatment, and in cases where there's abortion involved, that from any parents agree. In some cases, it concerns cancer treatment, and I say some parents who want to, or sometimes religious doctrines. I've seen cases whereby maybe a parents a Jehovah Witness, and also they belong to some religious groups or cult group, would be a certain treatment to be a more advocative, more any certain modalities be concerned in school, concerning treatment, not about front feels M1. In this particular case, or these circumstances, it feels that about front parents' decision not in your best interest of the child, one of want to see mental capacity to decide that they would take up a front decision over the parents and help a front to make the decision they think is right. So the healthcare then the law allows the healthcare practitioner to take up a front decision. For example, if the front does not provide consent for the healthcare practitioner not to involve the parents in this particular case, then the law allows the healthcare professional to deal with Abofrano without the consent of the parents if Abofrano chooses so. If the healthcare professional, whether a doctor, nurse practitioner, social worker, or whoever is dealing with, or welfare worker, as a child protective worker, whoever is dealing with Abofrano, if they feel that Abofrano has the mental capacity to understand and appreciate the consequences of the decision or lack of it, not the parents, they will take Abofrano. The reason being said, it is not always said, as much as our family members have our best interest, it is not always whereby the decisions we necessarily agree, or as much as they mean well, it may not always be in our best interest. So in this particular situation, the law comes on the side of the minor, or underage, as long as they have the mental capacity to decide whether a healthcare treatment is school, and I say a religious information or doctrines, be that they may not agree with their parents. Overall, America, NSA, Bofra, as we have seen in many of these jurisdictions and as in many of these countries, depending upon which area, depending upon which purpose, the definition of a child is defined by different ages. And we also see that based on the circumstances in the same country, sometimes they set the age at different ages. I would also like to add, say, in cases where a friend has mental capacity or incapacity or debilitation, or disability, intellectual incapacity, and also they may have attained the adult age now on their child, but based on the decision, a BINO may still allow parents for protective purposes to be the guardian, or a BINO may appoint somebody. In Canada, they may appoint child adult protective services, or the parents may still act as guardians, or in the case where parents, what their actions is not suitable or not considered best interest, then that's when they will appoint an impartial person who is the adult protective service person, or it can be a community agency that advocates for such people, or it could also be a court-appointed person. And as in Ontario, we could also have the Office of the Public Guardian involved, representative involved. The decisions could concern the personal health. So there are certain cases whereby also family members squander or misuse this vulnerable adult's income. It could be an elderly person. In those particular instances, a bank can also appoint a guardian through the Public Guardian's Office or through the courts to make decisions on this person's behalf, and as a concerning the financial decisions. In this case, if I'm filing a tax, now on the income, making sure that the person is getting adequate clothing, nutrition, maybe a kika. In some cases, when the adult person is still capable of appointing somebody, adult person will be encouraged to choose the ONOPE to be the representative. As long as the parents is acting in their best interest, they are fine to do so. In the conclusion, and it's a child normally is defined 18 and below, in some cases 16 and below, in some cases 19 and below, in some cases 15. It depends on which country, it depends on which area. But as far as the UN, as far as the Ghana law, as far as the African Charter on the Right of Children, it is 18 years old. Depending upon which country, depending upon which province, depending upon which area or one, you need to check what the age of the child is. The rule of thumb is depending on you. Make sure that it's in their best interest. Make sure so action is not detrimental to their welfare. Now, besides about getting involved, signs of affecting the brain development, the well-being, particularly so you have a fry. Thank you for listening. Take care. Take care of your child. Find out what your local law says, and also seek out a professional for help. If you also have questions on our video, please by all means direct the questions to the Thank you for watching the other videos, and please enjoy this one also, and let us know what you thought. Let us know whether you have any further questions. Let us know whether you have an important topic for us to look into and discuss and learn together. Thank you. My name is Akusia. I'm talking from Canada. Take care. Bye.